And welcome to the People Analytics World 21 session on People Analytics Operating Models. I'm Max Bloomberg, and thank you so much for joining me here today. So, just to give you some of my background so that you know what informs my thinking, I've got a great interest in many of the subjects which make up People Analytics today. I have a background in maths and stats, psychology, and computer science. So I think those are important ingredients for People Analytics. Experience-wise, I've worked at Accenture as a consultant. I've had a technology startup. And today, most of my work revolves around consultancy in People Analytics with some really lovely companies, some really lovely clients. I have a great interest in robotic process automation, which we're installing, and in artificial intelligence. So that's my background, and a lot of that you'll see comes into the new operating model that we're going to be talking about. So what I'm going to do is we'll have a look at where are we now with People Analytics operating models. How did we design this new operating model called Deeper Oem, Digital Era People Analytics Operating Model? We'll have a look at some of the processes and structures that make up Deeper Oem, and also how it's different, and then we'll get on to some questions and some discussion. So let's start off by saying, where are we now with People Analytics operating models? So the motivation for Deeper Oem is really to say that companies are operating in increasingly lean eras. This is a lean era that we're operating in, and companies have to produce more and more with less and less. And you have to really, because if you cannot deliver the same value to your shareholders and your customers as your competitors, they're simply going to leave and go to one of your competitors to get that kind of value. So to survive in the long term, businesses and executive teams in particular are only going to fund those business functions like HR and marketing and finance, etc., which demonstrably enable the company's business outcomes via a set of what we're going to look at today, a set of strategic capabilities, which are productivity, customer growth, quality, and innovation. And I'm going to explain what I mean by business functions enabling strategic capabilities and business outcomes. So a great way to think about a business function like HR and marketing and finance is think of them as a set of processes. So in HR, we're all familiar with our processes of recruitment and succession planning and learning and development, etc. Marketing have got a set of processes that they manage, like campaign management, brand management, and finance will have a set of processes that they manage, like cash flow, tax, etc. Now, why do we have these processes in an organization? Well, the answer is that we have them because they enable a set of tactical capabilities. The tactical capabilities that HR processes enable are workforce capabilities. Marketing will enable marketing capabilities, and finance will enable financial capabilities. Now, why do we have these capabilities? Well, the reason is that we have them because if we choose the right capabilities, the right tactical capabilities, those tactical capabilities will enable a set of strategic capabilities. In other words, will enable the implementation of the company strategy, of your company strategy. And the strategic capabilities are productivity, and I think we know what that is, customer growth, so having a larger customer base, depth and share of wallet, quality, the extent to which your products and services meet your customers' needs, and innovation, doing it better than your competitors. And if you have those strategic capabilities, which were enabled by your tactical capabilities, then you will have those business outcomes that your executive team are so keen to have. And if you can give them those capabilities, which give them the outcomes, they will continue investing in your business function. If you don't, they're going to stop investing in your business function. And that's really the message here, is that we've got to demonstrably deliver a set of capabilities, tactical capabilities, which enable the strategic capabilities using the processes that we have to manage. Now, what are some of the issues then with current operating models? Well, there are definitely some wonderful HR and people analytics operating models today. And if you want to learn more about those, I can thoroughly recommend Richard Rosnau's 2020 proposals, Insight 222, and Jason Brown. But there are issues with these models. And the fundamental issue is that these models tend to enable workforce capabilities without considering whether they also enable strategic capabilities. So let's have a look at what I mean by that. Here's an example of some talent processes that we as people analytics and HR people might be custodians of, let's say, recruitment, L&D, succession planning, workforce planning, and so on. As you'll recall, we just said the reason that we manage these processes and design them is that we hope that we've designed them to give us the right workforce capabilities for our organization so that they'll give us the retention levels that we seek. That's a workforce capability. Employee experience as a workforce capability. Leadership, performance, agility, and so on. And the reason that we've got those capabilities is so that they enable the strategic capabilities which give us the desired business outcomes. But how do we know that the workforce capabilities that we're emphasizing are the correct ones for enabling the strategic capabilities? So let's say we're looking, for example, at innovation in our organization. I'm going to use that example to illustrate throughout today, but you could use productivity, customer growth, any of those really. And use innovation because it's slightly unusual. We don't normally talk about it much. So you are focusing on increasing innovation because your business strategy talks about the need to be innovative to successfully get the business outcomes that you need. So you believe in people analytics and HR that the best way to get innovation from your workforce is through retention. Employees that stay for a long time are more innovative. Heaven knows where you got that hypothesis, but it sticks. So you spend a fortune on reducing attrition and getting retention. But what happens if you're wrong? What happens if it is in fact agility, let's say, that enables innovation? It means that you're working on the wrong tactical workforce capability to give you the strategic capability you need, which means you're not going to get the business outcome that you're looking for. And that's the fundamental issue with most of the people analytics operating models that we see today, is that they focus purely on delivering the workforce capabilities without looking ahead to say, will it give us the strategic capabilities that our executive team need to give us the business outcomes and need to continue funding our function? Because if you're not giving them the business outcomes, they're not going to get the funding to help you. So you've got to demonstrate that you are designing talent processes which give the right workforce capabilities, which give the right strategic capabilities, which deliver those all-important business outcomes. So that's the fundamental issues that focus on workforce capabilities at the expense of strategic capabilities. That also means that you are hearing in a lot of the new models coming out buzzwords by the million. So we are hearing about scalability in people analytics operating models, new technologies like virtual reality and productization. These are wonderful concepts and wonderful technologies, and I'm a huge fan. Being such a geek, it doesn't take much to get me playing in a virtual reality world. However, unless they are addressing strategic capabilities rather than continuing to address workforce capabilities, you're just using fancier tools to do the wrong job. So that's a big limitation of current models. Another limitation of current models is that many of them are based on research of existing people analytics practices. Now, as you know, if you develop something incrementally from the way people are doing it today, you're not creating fundamental change that we need, which is a fundamental change to look at strategic capabilities. And that is an issue that using research-based incremental design of operating models is not going to do the trick. That's like Steve Jobs trying to incrementally invent a tablet computer looking at what's going on in the market. He just couldn't have done it, as I'm sure many of you know. And the digital era people analytics operating model, Deeper Oem, was designed specifically to address these issues. How did we go about designing it? We're going to have a look at that, and I just want to run through that chain we had a look at to understand how talent processes give rise to business outcomes in a little more detail so you can see this. So as you can see, you've got all of these talent processes like recruitment, human capital strategy, career development, etc., etc. The reason you have those is to give you the set of tactical workforce capabilities. The reason you have those is if you've chosen the right ones, to emphasize the right ones, you'll get the right strategic capabilities, and that will give you those desired business outcomes that the executive team are after. Of course, if you're working in people analytics, you should be starting at the back with the business problem. So you're saying there's a problem with revenue growth, and you might say, what's causing that? Which of our strategic capabilities is letting us down? So you might say it's innovation. Let's carry that example through. So why are we not getting the innovation we need? Which of our workforce capabilities is letting us down? And you come down the list and you do some testing and some real in-depth analytics, and you discover that it's workforce agility, let's say. And you might say the reason that we're not getting the agility, why are we not getting an agile workforce? And which of our processes is letting us down and not giving us the agility? And let's say you decide that it is recruitment. You're not recruiting people with an agile mindset. So you fix the recruitment process. That gives you the workforce agility capability that you need. That in turn gives you the innovation you need at the strategic capability level, and that gives you the revenue outcome that you're looking for. So that's how people analytics should be addressing problems. So how did we design Deeper Oem? Well, here is strategic people analytics in a box, and you are very welcome to use these ideas in your own organization if you find that they're useful for you. We designed the model using the following chain. We assume that your executive team are looking for a certain set of business outcomes, which may be return to shareholders, a sustainable environment if they're ethically minded, employee work-life balance, being involved in local communities, etc., etc. And the reason or the way that they're going to achieve those outcomes is by having those strategic capabilities. They can't achieve them without the strategic capabilities. So your executive team said something like this. They said, to achieve our desired business outcomes, such as generating the adequate returns, we will implement a set of strategic capabilities which meet our customers' needs better than our competitors by selling them our products and services. So you can just insert your products and services in there. Now, you know that the only way to get those strategic capabilities from a workforce perspective is that you have to deliver the correct workforce capabilities for those strategic capabilities. And so your executive team said, we will invest our limited corporate budget in a people analytics function because we believe that they can design a workforce with the capabilities we need to enable our strategic capabilities. Now, you know that the only way to get the correct workforce capabilities is to have the correct talent processes for your organization. And so you say, our people analytics strategy is to design talent processes which build and maintain a set of workforce capabilities which enable our company's strategic capabilities. Because with those strategic capabilities, that's how you get the outcome. So there in a box, you've got a lovely people analytics strategy. And the way you implement that strategy as an operating model, which I'm going to show you in a second, is as follows. You say that we will deliver our people analytics strategy by designing workforce capabilities which will deliver our company's strategic capabilities as follows. In terms of productivity, we will design, as a people analytics function, we will design the smallest, most efficient workforce capable of delivering the required strategic capabilities. And you'll be using tools like workforce planning and employee profiling to do that. Customers. This workforce that we design will also be capable of maintaining and growing a customer base large enough to deliver our desired business outcomes. In terms of quality, the workforce that we design in people analytics will have the capability to ensure that our goods and services meet our customers' needs. And finally, innovation. We will design a workforce capable of ensuring that our products and services are more effective than our competitors when it comes to meeting our customers' needs. So there again, you have a lovely execution statement in a box, which you're very welcome to use if that is useful to you. So with that background, we then design Deeper Oem in order to meet that need to create the right workforce capabilities from talent processes. And here is the structure of Deeper Oem. You'll notice that there are 4 sub-functions on the go. We've got one called Workforce Capability Planning. There's one called Talent Process Design and Implementation. There's one called Data Management, Productization and Listening, and there is Governance. So let's have a look at Workforce Capability Planning. Their role is to establish the workforce capabilities needed to deliver those strategic capabilities. And workforce planning might be a way to do that. We'll look in the following slide at what are the processes used for achieving that. The workforce capability planning sub-function also elicits workforce-based business problems. And again, we'll have a look at that. They are also the team that build the predictive models and the workforce planning models, which will give you the parameters to create your talent processes. And we'll look at that. So that is the workforce capability planning function. It is your business consultants, and it is your data modelers, your data scientists, and your workforce planners. The talent process design and implementation team, they are the team that now take the talent process inputs that are calculated by the workforce capability planning function, and they design the new talent processes, which will give you the workforce capabilities you need. And they will also implement those processes. The data management team have got quite a large remit, much as they do today, I have to say. They've got to maintain the quality of the data that are going to be used by the workforce capability planning team. They are the team that are going to productize the repeated calculations. Well, I have to explain now what we mean by productize in that context. Your data team are also the team that implement your HRIS platforms and service requests from your users. So there's something that's very different immediately as well, is that HRIS implementation, Workday, SuccessFactors, Visio, whatever you're using, is done from within the people analytics function. And then finally, data management also look after employee listening and surveys. And then finally, we have the governance function. And that governance function does what you would expect. It does all of the leadership, project management, etc. of the projects. So with that in mind, let's have a look at the Deeper Oem process that we go through. So the first step that these functions go through is that you need to determine what are the workforce capabilities required to deliver your company's strategic capabilities. And that means that your business consultants, that workforce capability planning team, it's all color-coded for you, that team have got to look at the business strategy and look for everything that refers to the workforce or implies a workforce capability. So if we stay with the innovation example, you may see that your business strategy insists that you have a particularly innovative workforce in order to stay above your competitors and to keep your market share is going to require innovation. So you would note that from the strategy. If you're in the real world in people analytics, you would then need to create a business case to justify the project. So you'd look at what are the benefits of improving innovation in our workforce for developing that capability, and does it justify the cost? If it does, you then move on to project setup, and you can see from the coloring that this moves over to the governance function, the governance team. They will look at all the projects that you will have on the people analytics back burner, because remember, you're going to have quite a few projects waiting in line to be done, and they need to be prioritized and resourced. Now you've agreed what the workforce capabilities are that you need. You've got the business case. You've set up a project to do that. The next step, if you remember your scientific method or scientific process, is you need to hypothesize, well, what are the talent process parameters that we need to change in order to ensure that we have a sufficiently innovative workforce? So that's going to involve speaking to the business stakeholders and asking them to hypothesize, what does it take to get innovative employees? And you'll get all kinds of hypotheses, like they need to have a particular education, a liberal arts education, who knows, or they need a particular personality, they need to be introverted, or they need to be the people who come to work early, who knows. But you'll get a whole lot of parameters from them, which you as a people analytics function need to test in some way to see who is correct. You then need to generate some data in order to test those hypotheses. Now, most of the data you need in people analytics, actually you won't have on hand. So you'll be generating that data through attitudinal surveys, speaking to people, focus groups. You may look in your HRIS. You may have some in your business systems if you're looking at sales data that you want to correlate, surveys, listening data. So you can see that's all part of the data team. That's why the data team do all of that. So now you've got data for testing those. Now it goes back to the workforce capability planning team, and their job is going to be to build a model. So that could be a statistical model, it could be a workforce planning model, and what they're looking for is to determine which are the appropriate talent process parameters. You know, was it the liberal education? Was it the introversion? Was it a mix? What do we need to change to give us that workforce capability that will give us the strategic capability of innovation? And once you've worked out what those are, let's say it's introversion, just for argument's sake here, that will give you the workforce capability. You'll then give that over to the talent implementation team, and they will design a new talent process using introversion. Now, it's likely that that is going to be a recruitment process, because you can't really teach introversion, can you? But let's say that it was a liberal arts education. Turned out to be important as well. In that case, they would design a new talent process for learning and development. So that's how you use the parameters calculated by the model. You might also decide to productize the information, which is 7B there. What I mean by productize is you don't want to have to build this model every year to calculate whether a new employee has got the characteristics that you're looking for, the introversion or the liberal arts education. So what the data team do, there are developers in the data team, they will put a lovely user interface around that statistical model which made the calculations. And that model can now be used by anybody in your organization as a product by simply entering the education and the personality traits of new applicants to the company to see, do they meet those requirements to give you the workforce capability of innovation? And then finally, of course, you would then implement the new talent processes, the recruitment or the learning and development, and or implement the new product. So that is the Deeper Oem process, with the code showing you which of those sub-functions do what. If you'd like to see the workflow that goes with it, you can see that there are four major inputs to Deeper Oem. One is the workforce capability requirements, which you got from the business strategy. As you can see, the workforce capability planning team are in charge of those. They're also in charge of looking at the strategic capability problems. You know, you're going to have problems where you're not hitting enough revenue or your productivity is too low. They will be scanning the horizon all the time for problems so that they can see which workforce capabilities do we need to change in order to address those problems. Another key input to Deeper Oem is employee listening. So I've put dots around that because that isn't necessarily a strategic thing. But the logic there is if you have a very unhappy group of employees, they could seriously derail your strategic capabilities. So I think it's quite important for them to monitor. And of course, that is the job of the data function. And finally, of course, even if you're working on strategic stuff all the time, you are still going to be getting plenty of requests for data from your users, for reports, etc., etc. You can offer self-service to do a lot of those, but the reality is that you'll be getting a lot of those. Anyway, all of those go as inputs into the workforce capability planning function, and all of them require really good people data to make decisions, evidence-based decisions. You've only got two outputs when it comes to Deeper Oem, which is quite different from a lot of the other operating models. Those are talent processes, which hopefully give you the right workforce capabilities, and products. So there, in a nutshell, is the Deeper Oem model. Now, how is that different from a lot of the other people analytics operating models that we see today? Well, as you can see, this model proactively focuses on alignment with the business strategy by going out and actively looking at your business strategy to derive what are the workforce capabilities that we as people analytics professionals need to produce with our talent processes. So you shape those processes correctly. It's proactively done. You're not waiting for users to come to you and say, we're having a problem. You're not firefighting problems all the time. You are proactively aligning with the business strategy. The second thing that makes Deeper Oem different is that we only have those two deliverables. That makes it much easier to focus the mind. All you've got to think is we are producing the right talent processes and the right products. You don't have to worry about intermediate reports, etc., etc. Those are not your key deliverables. A third difference that you will get from Deeper Oem is that there's plenty of co-location. And what I mean by that is there's very tight couplings to ensure that you have an integrated people analytics function. So you'll have noticed that modeling, the data modeling, the workforce modeling, and the implementation functions work very closely, which means that your analytics findings will be implemented as talent processes. So often, the analytics teams are frustrated because they do wonderful analysis and it's not implemented properly, and sometimes not even implemented at all. We've ensured that by having implementation within the people analytics function, alongside the analytics function, you will make sure that those are implemented properly. You'll also see that the data modeling and the business analysis team operate in the same sub-function. That's because we believe that when the business team find the strategic capabilities that are required, the modeling team need to be very close by to ensure that they model those workforce and strategic capabilities correctly. And finally, you'll see that the data team is a lot broader than we usually have. It's got the data people, it's got the productization people, developers creating the products, dashboards, and indeed you'll see in a second we've got the workforce planning and HRA. So let's have a look at that. Key activities like workforce planning are normally seen as quite separate to people analytics, and so is HRIS implementation. So if you say, who's implementing Workday or SuccessFactors or Vizier or Oracle or what have you, they're normally done by a team over there. That simply isn't the case with Deeper Oem. They are key to the whole people analytics function, and they fit right into that model. So workforce planning and HRIS implementation are not ad hoc bolt-ons. They are part and parcel of everyday analytics. And finally, Deeper Oem is function-driven rather than headcount-driven. And what I mean by that is that as long as you're covering those functions, you can be sure that you are delivering strategic people analytics. You could even do that with 2 or 3 people. And Dave Milner and I will be looking at that tomorrow during the workshop when we look at the various job descriptions that go with Deeper Oem. Of course, as you scale up to become larger, you bring in more people, you can then get specialists in the functions, and we'll be looking at what happens as your people analytics function grows. So it's a really scalable model, but focused on strategy, unlike many of the current models. Like any model, there will be limitations. I'm not sure that Deeper Oem is going to be suitable for all environments. I can't make that promise, but I'm pretty sure that it will work in many environments. Like any model, it's going to need to evolve over time as technologies and techniques change. And I think it'll look different next year to what it does this year. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on it. We've tried not to over-specify what you need to do with Deeper Oem, telling you the techniques that you should be using or the statistical models. So we're not saying you must use scenario planning or you must use multi-level modeling or whatever. We believe that your team know what tools they use. So what we're suggesting is this is what you should consider doing, but we're not telling you how to do it. We're saying this is what you could do, but not how you should do it, because we believe that is up to you. Dave Milner, the HR curator, asked a great question. He says, well, Deeper Oem covers so much. Is there anything left for HR? And the honest answer is, I don't know. I believe that the implementation team design the talent processes and implement them. I think that perhaps HR's role in the future is going to be managing the processes once the people analytics implementation team has designed and implemented them. HR's job will be custodians, managers of those processes. I always believe that owners of processes are the business, because they are responsible for getting the right people to their functions. HR is a custodian. So I think HR's role is going to be managing the processes once we in people analytics have designed them. And finally, I encourage you to think of Deeper Oem not as the last word by any means, but more as a provocation to look at your own people analytics operating structure, maybe compare it to some of the facets and some of the ideas that you've seen in Deeper Oem, and to say, you know, that would be quite a good change. We'll take that, but we won't necessarily use that, but etc., etc. So view it as a provocation. And I think that's all from me today. I want to thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining me. And for those of you that will be joining us at the workshop, where we look more deeply at some of the job descriptions, it's goodbye from me until then. Thank you very much indeed. Take care.